Good morning. As I'm sure you all know by now, Mr. Hawkins is in custody for a homicide last night and the shooting of a 7-year-old. Really, I'm here to answer questions. I think everybody knows the story.
Why don't you go over it for the people that are watching on the internet right now, Chief?
Okay. Last night about 7:30, we had a call to a residence in reference to a shooting incident. What we know now is that Mr. Hawkins entered the residence and at one point held a gun to a 10-year-old's head, and then at that point the resident, which is an ex-girlfriend of his, tried to leave the residence with her 7-year-old son. He followed her out into the front yard, fired numerous shots at her, and we're still determining the total number of shots, and in the process struck the 7-year-old in the abdomen and the neighbor's house several times. He then went back into the residence, went to the rear of the residence where her mother's boyfriend, which has been referred to as the stepfather, 70-year-old male, was sleeping in a Winnebago, confronted him. They had an altercation and he shot the 70-year-old in the head. He then fled the scene, and after pretty extensive manhunt, we apprehended him in Tradition last night.
What was his path from that home to Tradition?
We're still trying to determine that at this point. We know he went to the Valero gas station where he left the vehicle. Detective Lieutenant Beck may be able to tell you a little bit more on that, on what he did after he got out of the vehicle, whether he was hiding in the bushes or waited in the vehicle. But he then made his way to a friend's house in Tradition.
Did he have an accomplice at that point?
We don't believe at this point. We're still that's still part of our investigation, the involvement of the other party, whether it was just a ride or whether they were involved.
But you're saying there was another party?
There was another party involved with getting him over to Tradition. He didn't walk over there.
Is that person facing any kind of charges, or
We're still investigating that part.
do you know who that person is, or?
Do we want to release that right now? Yeah,
Or just
it's really part of the that's part of the investigation we just haven't got to yet.
We know you had quite an extensive manhunt going all through the hours last night. How were you actually able to close in on him? Was it a tip, or was it just door to door, or what actually happened?
Basically, the detectives immediately got to work on his known associates, and we were able to we started making contact with known associates, and when they made contact with this particular individual, he attempted to flee out the back of the residence, and he was apprehended by detectives in the backyard.
Was he still armed at that point?
Yes, he was.
What was he armed with?
It was a handgun.
That house in Tradition, was that a girlfriend's residence?
We're not sure exactly the relationship. It is a female, yes.
And that gun, did he have a permit for it? Was it a stolen gun? Have you traced it?
No, it's not a stolen weapon. He does possess a CCW, concealed weapon permit. So
How many girlfriends does he have?
we're still trying to figure that out.
The in the arrest affidavit, I guess, it doesn't seem like there's any real reason. It doesn't seem like there's. I mean, okay, they were having an argument or a spat or whatever, but what was going on in their relationship? It doesn't seem like there was a real good reason for any of this shooting to happen. I mean, it's not like there was a long, drawn-out argument. They were quarreling back and forth. But have you gotten any kind of idea about a motive or reason or anything like that? I mean, they talked about her getting the wrong sandwich for him at Burger King, but
Well, first, there's not ever a real good reason to shoot and kill somebody, or try to. And second, there had been a long period of trouble in the relationship. So I'm not sure what his motive for this is at this point, but there has been some other issues between them prior.
So really, this started with a sandwich, or is he making that?
No, there was a reference in his statement and in the affidavit as to he was unhappy with the sandwich that she purchased for him
At Burger King.
at Burger King.
What did he want?
A triple Whopper.
And what did he get?
I'm not sure what he actually got.
In this, it also mentions that, I guess, the mom, or, indicates that there have been some incidents with her brother and the stepfather, I guess, where guns are involved.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that, or it's unclear exactly what that was about?
Lieutenant Beck will kind of cover that part of it.
There was a history between the one victim, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Hawkins in reference to an altercation which a gun was drawn, allegedly, by Mr. Williams on Mr. Hawkins several months ago. Mr. Hawkins was holding a significant grudge in regards to that, and pretty much was the reason for the killing of Mr. Williams. And he pretty much said that Mr. Williams had to die because of the acts of disrespect that were provided towards him from Mr. Williams.
From this earlier...
There's a long history. You have to understand there's a long history in the family of gunplay. A brother of the female, the girlfriend, was arrested for discharging a firearm at Mr. Hawkins during a domestic dispute last year. He was incarcerated for that. There was actually some issues where he was looking for that brother to extract some type of revenge, which was the motivating factor behind him going to the house last night. He was looking for the brother so that he could confront the brother in regards to this issue.
What did he say to you when you had him in question? I mean, what was his story?
What was his story? He confessed to the crime. He said that he was looking for the brother, that he went there specifically. The sandwich was just an escalation. The sandwich actually did have a play. It kind of made him feel disrespected. And then from that point forward, all the other issues from the past, the issue involving the gun with her brother, the issue involving the gun with her stepfather, and it kind of escalated to the point that he pretty much just lost control.
Okay, so you think he went there with the sole purpose of killing Miss Young's brother?
He went there with the intent to locate Miss Young's brother so that he could kill him. Yes.
And why did he shoot the 7-year-old?
Because of a past issue of gunplay in which he alleged that the 70-year-old drew a gun on him in an argument over money.
What about the child?
The 7-year-old was an accidental.
What do you mean?
He was shooting at the mother and accidentally hit the kid, according to him.
And where did those shootings take place? They were out of the house?
Yes.
At that point, running towards the
Yes.
neighbor's house when they were hit?
Yeah, they had, at that point in time, the 10-year-old child was still inside the home. He had held her at gunpoint, had a gun to her head. The mother and the 7-year-old were trying to get away from the scene at that point in time, exited the home. He followed them out of the home and began discharging rounds at them at that point in time, striking the 7-year-old. The mother continued on to the neighbor's house. He continued to chase the mother, discharging multiple rounds at her at that point in time.
And were there other people in the house at the time?
At which house?
At the house where this began, in addition to the 7, the mother, and the 10-year-old?
Yeah, the 70-year-old man was in a motorhome in the back. Mr. Williams, the 69-year-old stepfather, 70-year-old stepfather, was in
Do you
it.
know his exact age?
I believe he's 69. Yes, ma'am.
So there were no other women, children,
No, ma'am.
anybody else in the house at the time?
No, ma'am.
And did he make a practice of going to this house, or was he an unwelcome visitor?
No, he had stayed there on and off, but because of the relationship with the stepfather and the past history of the problems, once the stepfather moved back into the house, he's a long-haul truck driver. When he would come home to stay in the house, Mr. Hawkins would leave the home to prevent any issues, confrontations. He wasn't welcomed when Mr. Williams was there, and
Does Hawkins have any kind of a history of violence? And
No.
Seems like a pretty...
none that we've found. We've found 2 arrests for property-type crimes, neither one of which had any adjudication. And it's the only criminal history in the state of Florida we've been able to locate.
There's the
Mr. Hawkins
altercation.
have a military background, an expert in firearms?
He has a military background. We don't know about the expert in firearms at this point in time. We're still working on pulling his military records.
And what was his employment, and why did he have a concealed carry?
He had a concealed carry because of according to him, he got his concealed weapons permit and began carrying a weapon because of the altercation with Miss Young's brother last year, in which Miss Young's brother discharged a firearm at him and nearly struck him after a domestic situation. He said at that point in time he realized how quickly his life could be ended, went out and got himself a concealed weapons permit and started carrying a gun.
And was there a police report, and was there a
He was
history
arrested.
on this last year's domestic?
Yeah, he was arrested. The other individual, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now. Jannar or something, was incarcerated for that. He was taken into custody and charged and incarcerated, and he's just recently been released.
I'm not hearing any remorse in the story that.
There is no remorse. None.
What do you mean?
What do I mean?
Yeah.
There's no remorse.
Did he not, does he feel vindicated by what he did?
Yes.
Can
He
you
felt
explain?
the only thing he had any remorse for was the shooting of the 7-year-old. And in reference to Mr. Williams and everything else he did, he felt that this was righteous.
Righteous.
Yeah.
Use that word?
No, he didn't. That's my word. He felt justified.
Jamar, or the brother of Miss
Mhm.
Young, I guess, was it, do you know what the charge was on him? Was it attempted murder, or was it?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know right now, Will.
Got that far.
You got to remember, guys, we're 7 hours into this investigation, 8 hours into this investigation since we took him into custody. So we're
You're doing a remarkable job of
So-
coming up with all these details of these
So-
intertwined crimes. How often had you been out to this particular house? You said this family had a history of gunplay, I think the chief said.
I don't know the exact number of calls. I do know there was, the incident we were referring to was a year and a half ago between the brother and Mr. Hawkins. And there was another incident, I don't even think it was in our jurisdiction, between Mr. Williams and Mr. Hawkins that involved firearms. I believe that was at his shop.
Do you feel like the lockdown was justified last night, telling people to stay in their homes?
Absolutely. I think it's important that we err on the side of caution when you have someone flee from a homicide and we know they're armed. And I don't like the word lockdown because I can lock down a school, but I can't lock down a community. But I'm always going to err on the side of caution and ask people to go in their houses and lock the doors.
Did you have any issues with the public doing that?
No, I mean, we continue to have plenty of people standing out in their front yards trying to see what the police are doing, but we can't stop them from doing that. We just encourage them to take care of their own safety.
But I mean, you had thousands and thousands of people in the affected area, so
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, everyone was compliant.
Yes, I mean, we took a lot of precautions. Those of you who were out there last night saw how many units we had in the area. In addition to that, we did a reverse 911 call to the affected area and advised the people who we were looking for and to please stay indoors and report any information they had to us.
In this report, after it says, throughout this interview, Brandon discussed his self-discipline, education, how he tried for 2.5 years to educate Jamie and bring her up from her surroundings and negative influences. He stated that if somebody had educated her with common sense, he wouldn't be here today. Brandon also commented that he let his anger almost kill his son today. What do you have? It's a little unusual. What's up with that? I mean, his education, how he tried for 2.5 years to educate Jamie. Was he thinking straight, or is any truth to that, or what do you make of that?
He made indications that he was trying to get her to improve herself and that he didn't like who she was hanging out with. I want to be very cautious about how much I get into his confession, because if I get into a lot of detail on the confession at this stage of the game, I'm just going to complicate things for the prosecution in the future. So, I mean, but that was the gist of his message, was he was trying to get her to improve herself and not be influenced by other people that he perceived to be negative influences on her.
And you had 2 shifts out there last night, too, about manpower estimate as far as.
I haven't counted them up. Obviously, it happened on evening shift, and it overlapped into our midnight shift comes out at 10 o'clock, and we got them on the street as soon as we could, and so we had a double shift until we got the investigation under control.
Chief, just to repeat again, the brother, Jamie Young's brother, was not at the house then last night.
No.
That was the intent of Mr. Hawkins. He was looking for him, but he was not at the house.
Correct.
And do we know what triggered his sudden feeling that he had to go after this brother?
No, not why last night, no.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
And Chief, what is the nature of the relationship between Ms. Young and him? Are they estranged? Because the lieutenant had said that, you know, he came and went when the mother's boyfriend was not there. Were they friendly? Were they still seeing each other? And were any of the children his?
None of the children were his that we know of right now. My impression is they were on again, off again type relationship. They were having conversations yesterday about their relationship. So, yeah.
And was he employed? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, he was employed. He worked at a metal works company in Fort Pierce.
A metalworks company in Fort Pierce.
Yes,
What's the
ma'am.
name of that?
Phoenix Metal Works.
And was he a welder or a
I
mechanic?
don't know that.
This may be a little far field, but you know what school the kids go to?
I don't offhand. So,
Any other questions?
The firearm that you recovered in Tradition, I assume you believe that was the one that he used in the shootings, is that right?
Well, we're definitely going to investigate and do ballistics and match it up, but at this point, we don't have any reason to believe there is any other firearms involved.
What's the caliber of that gun?
9mm.
And so again, part of the argument, just the whole fast food situation, he was upset with the order, and that sort of was part of this, or is that a stretch to say?
I would say that the wrong sandwich was just another stressor on an already tense situation.
And do we know why then he decided to hold the gun to the child's head? Was it just because she was standing nearby, or he had some beef with her as well?
That's not very clear right now.
And was he threatening to kill her at the time? Was he yelling at Young, "I'm going to kill your daughter"? Or?
Not then, no.
And were they talking about their relationship, though, last night, as when he arrived and was looking for the brother? There was some back and forth about their current relationship?
Yes.
Would it be fair then to say that a combination of past incidents with Hawkins and Miss Young's family, bad feelings with them, the relationship, the sandwich, it all sort of combined into, maybe one thing was the straw that broke the camel's back, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that came together that influenced him to take the actions he did?
It appears to be a very strained relationship, and it just kept escalating. Yeah.
And Lieutenant, you mentioned at one point he said he only felt remorse about possibly, about shooting the child, the 7-year-old boy, and you said he used the words "my son." Did he look upon the child as his stepson or something along those lines?
He did look upon the child as his son, and Emmanuel actually referred to him as daddy, although it's not a biological child. But yes,
So he had been in these children's lives for a while, or?
about 2.5 years. So,
Did he go into detail about the gunplay they had in the past?
not really.
They just
Other than what I just told you, other than the police
Yeah.
report that we pulled up on the Jannar situation and what he alleged with Mr. Williams, but not really specifics.
And where is this Jannar person?
We haven't interviewed him at this point in time. We don't know, so we're looking. So, but
And does Jannar have a criminal record?
yes,
Oh, because he was arrested at least that
Yes.
one time.
I think the one thing that's really critical here, and this isn't going to make your play, but the fact that you guys got the information out so quickly, and our public information officer, Sergeant Sable, getting the information to you guys so quickly, really forced him into a situation to stay put. It really limited his capabilities of mobility. He had a very specific plan, and the fact that we were able to get the information out as quickly as the information got out, and using the resources that you all have available to you to touch thousands and thousands of eyes a night, really forced him into a situation to hunker down. So we really appreciate you guys, efforts. So thankful for the relationship.
What plan
So
was
Yeah,
that?
what was the plan?
I'm not going to go into that. So
You mean he had a plan to escape?
I guess.
he had yes, but we're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
So, but
That's part of
I
our-
just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate the relationship, so.
I also want to thank all of the other agencies that were involved.
Yeah.
Those of you who were on scene,
Marshal Service.
we had St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, Patrol, K-9, and air units in the area. Florida Highway Patrol, both their patrol units and their K-9 unit. The U.S. Marshal Service, Joint Task Force, and the State Attorney's Office was also on scene. So the investigation was concluded very rapidly because we had an abundance of resources to address it.
One other question, Chief. How many shots did the boy take in the abdomen?
One.
And how was it that Miss Young was avoided getting hit as this hail of bullets is going, or was she dodging, leaving, or just lucky?
She was just running.
Yeah, just by the grace of God.
And Levi Williams' relation to Jamie Young, stepfather,
Mother's boyfriend.
mother's a boy.
And where was the mother at this time?
She's a long-haul truck driver. She's on the
She was
road.
as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what company, the
No.
deceased gentleman worked for?
Just so I'm clear, it's not his stepfather, it's mother's boyfriend, Mr. Williams.
That's what we understand right now.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times he was shot?
We haven't had an autopsy yet, but the indication is at least once, obviously, maybe twice. We're waiting.
Does it look like he was executed? You said he was sleeping. Did this guy just walk in and shoot them, or did he wake up and they got in a fight and then he was shot?
He's saying there was an altercation. All right, well, thank you for
Thank
your
you all
help
very
and
much.
thank you for coming up.